Good morning. Have you ever had one of those mornings where the journey out the door to school turned into a power struggle? Well, today was nearly one of those mornings for us. Our 7-year-old Andrew had a specific thing in mind for breakfast that he wanted and nothing else would do, but it was something he wasn't allowed to have. And unfortunately, he started melting down. He started crying and whining and saying, "It's not fair." And let me tell you, in those moments, I noticed his relational circuits were off, but I also noticed that mine were trying to go off. I don't know about you, but when my husband or my son's relational circuits go off, it is very easy for mine to follow. So I knew that the first step that I needed to take this morning in order to avoid it turning into a power struggle was to keep my RCs on, because that's the one thing I can control. So I took a couple deep breaths. And approached him with tenderness and started to validate and comfort him. I offered the validation. "You're right, buddy. It is not fair. You really, really want to have that for breakfast, and it just does not feel fair at all that you can't have it. I'm so sorry. That's really frustrating." And I proceeded to offer comfort. I offered to give him a few snuggles if he wanted, and also said, "I know it's really frustrating that we can't have this, but it's a really good thing that we have some other options that usually you really like." And I listed some of the alternatives. He still was not interested in any of these alternatives, and the time was growing closer and closer to when we needed to leave. So I again approached him and said, "Buddy, I really know that you are hungry, and I know you really want this thing for breakfast, but you can't have it. I would really be sad if you had to leave for school with an empty belly." And he started whining how hungry he was, and he really wanted such and such, but he wasn't allowed to have it. So I pointed out to him, I said, "Buddy, your relational circuits are off right now, and it's really hard to accept any other alternatives because your brain is just stuck on that one thing. I know you don't want to go to school with a hungry belly, so what if mommy helps you get your relational circuits on?" He wasn't too interested in that option, but I continued to offer him a few options. I said, "Well, I know you're not really interested in that, but which of these options sound good? Do you want to do the startle? Do you want to do knocking or yawning?" And by the way, for more notes on that, you can check out the Shalom My Body YouTube video that Dr. Jim Wilder has on our page with directions on that. Or do you want to do appreciation tree? And for us, that means, do you want to think about some appreciation? We've created some appreciation trees for my boys, and you can check out my blogs on that for how we've done it. But it's kind of like a list for them of things that they appreciate. And I gave him the options, and he wasn't too interested in any of them, but the startle option kind of intrigued him a little bit, especially because I was kind of close to him, and he knew that he could sort of pretend to startle me too. So we did startle together. Here, I'll demonstrate for 1 second. Here we go. "Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord. Whenever I'm afraid, I will trust in you, O Lord." And we did that a few times together. And slowly I noticed that he seemed a little calmer. And he started to be tempted to go down the road of, "It's not fair." And I said, "Buddy, I know it's not fair, but if we focus on that right now, we have 5 minutes left and you're not going to have time to eat breakfast." So he realized he was hungry. His relational circuits were on enough that he was willing to select another option. He walked over to the cupboard, found a different option, and started to eat his breakfast. Thankfully, power struggle avoided. We were able to get out the door. We were able to recover. Now, it doesn't always work that way. Even though I kept my relational circuits on, it's very possible he would have just chosen not to eat anything that day. And one of the hard things with avoiding a power struggle is we have to be willing to let our kids do something that we don't particularly enjoy the idea of. So I did not enjoy the idea of letting him go to school with an empty belly, but I knew that I had to allow that to be an option, or else, so that he could have a choice, because when I'm not giving him a choice, it really does turn into a power struggle. And then also, if there's any way to help get RCs back on for both parties, that will really help avoid a power struggle. So hopefully your day goes well. Hopefully your relational circuits can stay on, and you can notice when they're starting to go off. I especially would advise you to keep an eye on your relational circuits when those around you, when you notice they're getting inflexible and others' relational circuits are going off. It's usually a time that yours will start to go off too. And if you can keep yours on, everything about the interaction will go better, even if the person you're interacting with's relational circuits don't come on. So see where you can notice today. Are your relational circuits on? Are the relational circuits of the ones around you on? And if somebody's relational circuits near you are off, especially if it's one of your children, is there anything you can do to help restore that? Do you have permission in that relationship to point it out and to help them? Or is your main job just to keep your relational circuits on? So I hope that your day goes well and your relational circuits can stay on, and when they go off, you can notice and restore them quickly.